Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome once again to the Karen Bashford podcast, the live stream. It's all about empowerment. And to that end, we are following on from a theme that Karen has talked about, A, on this, and B, on her audio podcast. More about that later. But today's topic is taking back control. And this is not just taking back control, putting your line in the sand over this, I shall not cross, etc. It's also about how boundaries can protect your peace of mind. So, Karen, explain to me what you mean by that, please.
Okay, well, previously, you know my life story, but boundaries was something I did not have.
If I can just say something, I'm pleased to actually have witnessed some epiphanies and some portions of that life story. So yes, I do know your life story. I mean, I didn't know the prehistory that led up to it, that created all the trauma, but the moment where you suddenly got that flash of what purpose was, yes, I witnessed some of that. So yes, I do. In answer to your question, carry on, please. Sorry.
So anyway, I didn't have boundaries, no boundaries at all. Or if they were there, they were often overstepped. It was like I didn't know how to reinforce them. One of the things that I've learned since I've been on this healing journey is that it's okay to say no. But the other thing I've realized is that you need to know what you're prepared to accept and what you're not prepared to accept.
Yes.
And most of us don't look at it like that. It's okay to accept certain things, but then you've still got to make that decision. If they hit that boundary, am I allowed to give a bit of flexibility, or has it got to be solid?
This is so true, because do you know what? I see people saying there are red lines here and here, and then people gaily swing past them, and then they go, well, okay, well, we'll just move the red line then. Is it? It's not a red line then, is it?
No.
So do you enforce, or do you not, or do you give laxity? I suppose
that is something that you have to decide at that moment in time, because sometimes we do have to compromise, and I'm not against that. But basically, unless you are certain that your boundaries are there for a reason, and what is that reason they're there for? For me, my boundaries are now well and truly in place because I want my own peace of mind. I'm not prepared to let anyone disturb my peace of mind.
But hang on a moment. Some of your boundaries that needed to be put in place, I wouldn't say they're obvious, but they're fairly self-evident. I mean, the obvious ones, like, you know, when someone is someone allowed to talk down to me? Is someone allowed to put me down or make me diminish me, or that sort? Those are fairly obvious, but there are other less obvious boundaries, like how long should someone take before they get back to me after I've asked them something? How immediate a response should I expect from a supplier, or from someone I work with, or from a friend, or dare I say it, from a family member?
Yes, but at
these are less obvious ones, aren't they?
They're less obvious, but they're quite important ones in the sense of I now accept that I don't put an expectation on a response.
Really?
Because actually I'm then dictating my terms to their boundaries. I have no right to do that.
Oh. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Why would I impose my boundaries on somebody when they've got their own boundaries? So
yes,
it's an acceptance.
And there's nothing you can do to control that, really, is there?
No. So there's an acceptance that we have our own boundaries and we have to stick to our boundaries. And yes, we have to compromise. But my expectation of me is that I send the message out, but then I sit back and allow them to come back. I don't dictate through my own expectations. I need a response, unless I need an urgent response, in which case I'm very clear on that. You know, I need this now kind of situation. it's then up to them whether they're going to respond to that or not. I can't still control what they do. I have to manage my own boundaries and my own expectations.
Right.
That's just how you do.
Yes, it is, because you know what? What I've tended to do is set boundaries, not tell people that I've set those boundaries. Then when they cross them, I rage internally, but realize I can't tell them off for crossing the boundaries because they didn't know.
No.
So the only person that loses out that whole non-interaction is myself.
Yeah, that's why
I'm pretty angry, but I've got no reason to feel angry.
Yeah, and that's why communication is so important. You have to communicate, and that's one thing we're not very good at. We can talk like there's no tomorrow, but do we actually communicate?
Yeah, talking but saying not a lot is a thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But okay. With some people, our boundaries are almost non-existent. The ones that are closest to us, husbands, wives, significant others, whatever.
You still need boundaries, though.
But you still need boundaries. That's the thing, and I'm always unsure where to set them or how to set them.
You have to set them to what is right for you, not what's right for them. What's right for you. Now, as I was sharing earlier on, I didn't have any previously. And that was part of the problem with my family, is that I did not know how to say, no, I'm not prepared to tolerate this.
Yeah, but what made it worse was there were members, forgive me if I'm misstating this, but there were members of your family with narcissistic tendencies. So with you not having the boundaries in place, they just went, let's push it as far as we can go.
Well, yeah. And they're now, putting it discreetly, suddenly realizing that they can't.
Yes, and I suspect it's a bit of a rude shock in a way. It's a rude awakening.
Yeah, because I said just after my mother died that I was having nothing to do with them. And one of the messages that I sent back was very, very clear that I was not going to have anything to do with them.
Right.
So to have a message come through from this person 5 different ways, it was like, oh, okay, so you're wanting to come back into my life, even if it's temporarily because there's something needs dealing with. You're then challenging my boundaries well and truly. But now, because I do know my own self and what is acceptable for my boundary, especially where he's concerned, it's a big no. I want my mental health. I do not want
more
him
important than
interfering.
anything. More important than anything is you to thine own self be true, and to have someone effectively say, well, your boundaries are worthless because I'm just going to blast past them. That's in direct conflict with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a lovely feeling to recognize that my boundaries are so strong where this is concerned that I'm not responding at all. I've actually seen the messages.
Right.
I've even seen the phone calls that come through, but they haven't disturbed my peace of mind because my boundary is so strong where he's concerned that I'm not allowing him to actually come into my space. I am choosing how I'm going to respond.
So my wife, Heather, refers to this sort of thing as a bubble. Because she has a couple of members of her own family that she doesn't want to interact with, and when they hit the bubble, they bounce off it because, and she's not allowing herself to get triggered by it. And I guess that's what you're talking about now.
Absolutely, I'm not allowing him to interfere with anything I'm doing. I have so much to do with my big project, which is now starting to come to fruition, that I do not want him coming into my space and disturbing that.
No,
When I
that's the
pick that
last thing you
phone
need.
up, if I choose to pick that phone up, it'd be on my terms. It'd be when I want to do it, not because he's insisting.
Yeah, I think it's a difference between being forced into acquiescence as opposed to deciding when you're going to act.
Yeah. And at the moment, I've got so many other things I need to do. Yes, I know the phone call could literally be a minute long, but it still takes me the need to prepare to make that call.
Well, the trouble is, once you do that, there's a weight of history behind it, and which can't be just wiped out with pleasantries.
No.
So it and anyone would be a fool to think it would, frankly, because there's a lot of history and the attached trauma.
Yeah.
Right.
And
It's
it
all
is
there.
the trauma. It's my awareness of the impact that relationship had on my physical and emotional health and mental health that I do not want to step back into it at all. Out of choice, I'd much rather just block everything and have nothing, any messages coming through. But I also recognize there is a need for him to contact me. But I also am aware there is a way that the problem could be resolved without any contact with me. He's just not choosing to take it. So it's still his need to control rather than me having control. But knowing that allows me also to say, well, okay, I do know there's an option. Maybe I'll just send a message and say, well, you can do this. But it's giving myself that option and giving myself the right to decide how I want to respond. That's why boundaries are so important, especially if you've been in a relationship that has caused you trauma. You need to be in control, not the person that's caused the trauma.
Right.
Because the only person in control of you is you. Nobody else. So every response you give is your response.
Yes,
not
but
somebody else's.
I keep forgetting that, of course. You choose to give a response.
Yeah.
That means you maintain control of that response. And if you give no response, that's a response too. And you're choosing.
Yeah, you are choosing. I'm acknowledging that I'm giving this energy now, but I'm acknowledging it because it's a lesson that I can share, but it's also an acknowledgement of how powerful I have become for myself. And that's where the peace of mind comes from, is recognizing that actually you have total control over your life and all your responses. It's not an illusion. It's the truth. You have control.
But it does feel like sometimes an illusion because especially when you're in the situation you're in where there are a certain person or certain persons that you've taken the step of saying you're not in my circle and you will not affect either mood or direction or integrity. So therefore you're not stepping past this circle or even approaching it without permission or say so from me. But the very act of you giving permission or say so alters the dynamic anyway, right?
Yeah.
As usual, you've got me thinking. All right. So
good. I'm pleased to hear it. This is what this is all about, is thinking there's a different way of doing things. We don't have to follow the rules. And I've suddenly realized, actually, I'm not a rule follower. I'm so not a rule follower.
I don't think you're altogether big on rules in as much as, the anathema of the antithesis, as it were, of creativity is strict rules. However, there have to be some basic, almost morals or mores to do with the way in which we deal with each other. And if those normal ways either break down or insufficient, you have to be able to set up boundaries.
Yeah, and I do with you, don't I? But I do it very nicely. I don't challenge you. I just do it very nicely because I recognize there is always a reason behind everything anyone does.
Yes.
I'm not about to challenge those reasons. I'm just stating this is what's going on for me, what's going on for you. That's all I do. I don't impose myself upon you. But you also know my expectations of
That's
working with.
Absolutely.
We've discussed that. We've talked about that.
Yes. Well, guys, I hope you're getting as much out of this as I am. Every week, as I said to her just before we came online, I look forward to it every week's interaction because it causes my brain to go off and spark in a slightly different direction to where I'm very much being on the spectrum. I have certain parameters I normally work with, and to have someone gently push me outside of that is actually scary but refreshing all at once. And here is my in this podcast is my environment to allow myself to be pushed slightly in a different direction, and it's good because it gives me pause and helps me, dare I say it, be a better human. I learn how to communicate better, but also appreciate. For instance, in this case, I may want to push forward, but other people have their own boundaries as well. So therefore, you've got not so much just to respect it, but expect it. It should be almost the norm. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, you see, you've got me going now. Once again, this has been another Karen Bashford show. But before we go, I'm going to put up the new improved QR code that will take you to the Empowered Women Life Leaders podcast. Goodness, Karen, we've got a lot of them up there now.
We've got 26 or 27 of them now, haven't we?
I would suggest if you've not tried it and you've not had a listen, you don't need to stop whatever else you're doing. You can be doing other things like walking, you can be knitting, you can be eating, you can be preparing, whatever it is you're doing. These are carefully balanced, well-placed words, which hopefully will either inspire you by some of the interviews you've done or some of your own, because interleaved with interviews are almost breakdowns talking about very positive aspects of how you can change for the better the direction of your life by using some constantly simple ideas. I would say all of the ideas you put forward have been simple, but you need to think about them to be able to incorporate them in your own life. And yes, it says life leaders podcast for women, but I've gotten a lot out of it as well. And whether I identify as man, woman, child, beast, or otherwise, I'm enjoying listening to it, and you can too. Do follow the QR code, and hopefully you'll find the guidance within edifying. And what's the next podcast going to be, Karen?
I haven't decided yet. It's going to be me.
Well, of course, it's going to be one of Karen's own one. But what I would say also is, if you want to start your own wellness journey, if you want to start, and I'm talking to ladies out there who may have felt that perhaps they're not lost, but they're not absolutely sure that the path they're taking is the one they need to take. And I think a no obligation discussion with Karen will either give you the impetus to keep forging ahead as you have been, or maybe give you pause so you can work out, maybe I need to look at this from a different angle. Karen's exceptionally good at doing that. So I would suggest that you follow that short link there. That's KarenBashford.com. Go and take a look and perhaps start a discussion with her today. So don't forget the Empowered Women's Life Leaders podcast, QR code top right. And of course, go to the KarenBashford.com website to start a discussion. Thank you so much for our ongoing discussions, Karen. And to you out there, please try and keep your feet on the ground. Reach for the stars. You might catch the moon on the way. And look after that mental health. Take care. Until next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.